Different native data types in Python. So Python has seven primitive, or we may call as native data types. The first category is the numbers. Second category is Booleans. The third category is strings. Fourth category is the lists. Tuples, dictionaries, and sets. So these are seven native data types in Python. If we talk about numbers, then Python supports three types of numbers. Python has int, float, and complex. A Boolean value can have either true or false value. If we talk about strings, then you can write strings either in double quotes or in single quotes. The strings in Python are immutable. It means you cannot change the value of a string once it is assigned. The lists are the heterogeneous data types. If you want to define a list, then you can define that in brackets. It is a heterogeneous data type, and you can change the values of a list. So a list is mutable, and you can perform various operations on lists. A tuple is just again an immutable data type. You cannot change the values stored in a tuple, but the advantage of using tuples over other data types that the operations are very fast. So a tuple can be created with the parentheses, and you can just provide values by separating them with commas, and you can omit even using these parentheses. Dictionaries are very useful data types. So dictionaries are again the heterogeneous data types. So a dictionary is a key value pair. So here it is a key and then there is a value. So it is defined like that. A set is a collection of unique values. So again, these brackets are used for defining a collection, but the values cannot be repeated in a set. So we'll be discussing in this video in detail that how to use numbers, booleans, and strings, and each of these topics will be covered in detail in the subsequent videos. So let's get started that how to use these values, how to use these native data types in Python. So let's get started. And if you do not know how to write a Python script or Python program, then you can just watch the video before this in which I have explained that how to set up Anaconda platform for writing Python programs. So I have already installed Anaconda. I'm just opening Anaconda prompt. Or if you have Python installed on your system, then you can directly open Python prompt. And this is Anaconda prompt. So in order to make this visible on the screen, let me use magnifier so that you can view it conveniently. On this Anaconda prompt, I am just typing Python to get started with Python prompt. So let's get started with numbers. So there are three types of numbers in Python. The first one is int. So Python is a loosely typed language. If you just create a variable x and you assign it value 12, then x will be an int. and suppose you are creating another variable y and you are assigning it value 90.78, then y will be a float value, and in the same way you can define a variable z which will be a complex number. The structure of a complex number is just like 3 plus it is real part, 3 is the real part and then the imaginary part, and it should be suffixed with j. So the ordinary format of a complex number is with I, but here you need to specify with it with j. So you can check whether x, y and z are having the type as int, float and complex. So there is a built-in function type. You just specify the name of any variable. So here you can find out that the type of x is int and the type of y is float. So type function is there to check the type of any data type. So there are three numbers, the int, float and complex. And the next category of native data types is Boolean. So here you just specify, or you just write a equals to true, and you can print the value of a, which is true. You can also print the value of x, y and z. So it is printing these values. And for Boolean, you can assign only true or false values. Python is case sensitive language, and if you're writing here true, then it should have capital T, and if you write it in small letters, then it won't be able to recognize it correctly. So the numeric and Boolean data types, the third category is strings. So strings are very useful data type, and you can create strings with either double quotes, or you can even use single quotes for defining a string. So it is x, and again you can define a string y. You can use single quote, hello world, and then you can print the value of x and y. So it is having the values which we have assigned, and you can obviously check the type of x and y. So the type of x is, the class of x is str, which is a string, and the class of y is also a string. So these are the strings. So let's discuss the strings in details. So here I'm gonna discuss the strings in detail, that what operations you can perform on strings. So the most important operation on strings is the indexing of this string. So if you just define here a string str equals to hello. So how this value is stored? So it is indexed, and the index always starts with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So it will hold value h, e, l, l, o. And if you talk about str0, then it will always refer to this particular location, and it will print h. Similarly, it is index 1, 2, 3 and 4. But more interestingly, you can also start the indexing from the end. If you specify here index str minus 1, so it will refer the last element of the string, and you specify here minus 2, then it will refer to the second last element, and if you specify minus 3, then it will always refer to the third last element, which is L in this case. So it is very interesting that you can start indexing from the beginning, or you can start indexing from the end. If you are starting indexing from the end, then you should use negative numbers, -1, -2, -3 and -4. So how to use it? Practically, let's do some operations on a string, and we'll have to use again the magnifier so that you can see it properly. So here is the magnifier. Let's increase its size. So I'm doing some operations on a string. So str equals to hello. If you just write str0, then it will print h. If you write here str-1, you will get O, which is the last character of this string. You can also have the slicing of the string. So you can specify here the 3 values which should be separated with colon. The first should be the start of the string, second should be the end index of the string slicing, and the third one is the number of steps. So let's understand it in detail. You can use any number of any of these 3 arguments. So if you write here 1 colon 5, so it is printed value ELLO, because we are just slicing the string from 1 to 4. So this last index is always excluded, and it always includes the first index. So it gives you a string from index 1 to 4. And if you just write here 0 to 5, then you'll get the entire string. And if you write here 0 to 1, so you'll get just h, because it is excluding the element which is stored at index 1. So starting from this, and it will go 1 less than this value. So this is one way. If you write here 5 and you provide third argument 2, so it will skip the elements with a difference of 2. So it will start from h, then it will go to L, so it will skip this, it will print them with a difference of 2. And you can also print the strings from the last. You can just provide here, you can keep them blank and just provide here -1. So starting and ending, you are not giving any information, but it will start printing the indexes from last 2 and just keep on adding -1. So it is printing the string in the reverse order. This is what you can do with this string. You can assign a string variable with the slicing of another string, str03, and you just print the value of str1, so it is HEL. So these are the operations that you can perform on a string, but a string is an immutable data type. So str contains hello. If you just want to change some value, you just want to change the value of index h, then you cannot do this, because string objects do not support item assignment. And you can concatenate strings. So str1 plus str. So here this is the concatenation of strings, and str, and you can multiply here 3. So it is repeating the same string 3 times. So you can use multiplication operator. And suppose if there is a a string, you can use it in single quotes or double quotes, and if you're adding it with some integer value 1, then you cannot the integers are not automatically upgraded to strings. It will give you an error, and for explicitly converting a string an integer into a string, you can use a built-in function str. Most recent object is not callable, so you have already defined a variable with str, so it is a clash between the local variable and the function, so it is not taking it like that. So for that, you shouldn't have a variable defined with name str, and so this clash can be resolved by deleting variable str. So you can just use del command and write here str. It will delete the variable, and now you can just concatenate a with 1 by just typecasting 1 to str. So this is the typecasting of a variable to a string. Thanks for watching, and watch the subsequent videos to know in details about rest of the primitive data types.